My name is Alex Howard. For nearly 20 years, I've been a therapist here in London. I am deeply passionate about helping people make real, positive change in their lives. Having been through therapy myself at different stages of my own life, I know how transformative it can be. That's why I started In Therapy, a series that follows the stories of brave participants as they go on therapeutic journeys with me. Join us as we go behind the scenes as people grapple with issues like depression, anxiety, and chronic illness, and join my mission to break the stigma around mental health and asking for help. This is In Therapy with me, Alex Howard.
Yeah, things are strange. And not good strange. Obviously we're now going back into another lockdown. And the thought of that really is weighing on me. It's worrying me. I don't know whether to, hunker down and stay where I am in London, or to try and go back to Scotland and be with my mum. As much as you hope it'll only be for 4 weeks or whatever, could be longer, and anything can happen. Also, it was my birthday at the weekend, so it was pretty. It was pretty tough. It was, the first birthday without my dad, obviously. And it just felt like the first of a lot of firsts. There's going to be a lot of these days where I'm going to think, I'm going to be expecting a phone call from my dad, or I'm going to be expecting to see him, and he won't be there. So that's kind of tough. And there was just this, I kind of celebrated with some friends. We ended up just doing like a drink and a quiz online, and it was nice, but I was just worried I'm becoming boring. That I'm just a problem now. That people are just seeing me as, some miserable. And I think that feeds back into what Alex was talking about, sort of the inner critic. And I've been sort of working with that, and that's been really quite painful. That idea that, you kind of notice the attack and you fight back and you tell it to f*** off only goes so far. And that sort of idea of defending yourself, of sort of saying, well, that hurts me when you speak to me that way. First of all, you're saying it to yourself. And in my case, my inner voice is just like, well, you wimp. And just belittles me more. And if I agree with that, if I say, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, then the voice just goes, well, of course you don't know what the f*** you're doing, why are you even trying? I'm finding it really difficult to find that way of disengaging, when my inner critic attacks me. It's that idea of, if you can see it, you don't have to be it. Well, what if it's all you can see? What if it's all you can hear? And that's the way I feel. So yeah, I'm in a pretty anxious place. I don't know what to do about that.
David, how have you been doing since last time? Obviously, some things have evolved, let's say, in terms of second lockdowns come in. I think that's made things challenging for a lot of people. So I've just been maybe just to start with, just wondering how you've been doing.
I haven't been doing great, but I don't know if the lockdowns really had that much to do with it. There's been, as I say, other things going on in my life, or ongoing in my life, and just, so I had a bit of difficulty with them, and, you know, stresses at work, and then, there was this sort of announcement of lockdown, but I mean, it's less than a week so far, so far so good, you know. Haven't killed my flatmate yet.
How's that been since last time?
It's been okay. You know, it's just strange living with someone you don't know and don't share any taste with.
One of the things we talked about last time was the sort of openness of dialogue and sort of expressing some of the frustration. Has there been any evolution around that?
There hasn't really been much of a chance. She's been working a lot and I've been working a lot. I did have a birthday though.
You had your birthday?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And one of my friends sent me a really posh set of earplugs. which,
like noise cancelling?
Which I've been using, and nothing's getting in or out. So
wow, okay.
So a
pragmatic solution to the problem.
Yeah. So yeah.
And how have you been doing with your homework? Obviously, last time we talked quite a bit about the inner critic, and we explored this idea of increasing awareness, but also working on defending yourself. How's that been?
Yeah, I've been recognising it a lot. The actual defence stuff has been probably not so successful. I watched the videos that you gave me access to, and I found them useful. I found them, interesting. Yeah, I would say that my inner critic probably has a bit more teeth than the woman you spoke to.
Right.
but I think it's just an ongoing thing. I think it's just my inner critic's just not taking any of my shit.
So it feels like you're recognizing it more, you're more aware of it, but you don't yet feel you're getting much sort of result in terms of the sort of defending against it.
Yeah.
What have you been, in the sort of recognizing, what have you been noticing? It sounds like there's been a sort of growing awareness, and obviously we've been having this sort of spotlight on it. What have you seen, either more ways that it's manifesting or more examples? Like what have you been noticing with the awareness around it since last time?
It's always really angry or really smug.
Okay.
And it's quite constant.
Yeah.
So even today, there's stuff that stuff that I should have done, which I've been putting off doing. And a big part of that has just been I haven't had the brain space to do it. And today I kind of didn't have too much work to do. And I thought, well, I should really do this finance thing that I hate doing. And I just didn't do it. But all the time I had this sort of smug nagging voice saying, you could be doing that right now. You can just get this over with. And I was like,
But it's interesting. It sounds like that there is an increased recognition of the sort of quality of that voice. Like it's angry, it's smug. Does it remind you of anyone? Like either a specific person or a group of people? Like, because it sounds like you're getting a clearer sense of that sort of that voice.
It sounds like me.
Okay. You being a sort of nastier version of you, in a sense.
Yeah. So it doesn't sound like, doesn't sound like my parents, it doesn't sound like the school bully, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like me.
Yeah. On a sort of scale of 0 to 10, like 10 being like super determined and 0 being completely demotivated, where would you rate yourself on that scale in terms of your sort of determination so far in terms of defending against it? Like how much sort of effort do you think's gone into that so far?
I don't remember, it was a hard one. I think I was probably trying quite hard at the start and trying less hard now, but that's just because I've had a lot of things to do, you know. So at the moment, probably 5.
Okay. And where were you at the start, do you think?
Probably 7.
Yeah. Okay. What have been have there been some examples where you feel you have been effective in defending against it? Like where it was, you can sort of look back and go, actually, I was giving myself a hard time, either just by noticing it or by telling it to off or by using one of the responses, but there was a sense of actually you were able to get yourself some distance.
I think more the sort of the defence that seems to have worked better is the kind of ignoring it defence, that kind of sort of
changing the subject, sort of changing your focus.
Well, sort of going, right, okay, just
jog on.
Yeah. That's probably been weirdly a little bit more effective than any of the others.
Okay. So which is interesting because I was reflecting kind of last time that for a lot of people, the off is good because they're often in a place of being quite impotent or weak, let's say, in themselves. I think your challenge is your inner critic is so strong and so vicious that if you get off, you just got to go to war with it. And actually that potential sort of escalates sort of that. That actually just not feeding the monster, I think in some ways is probably more effective. Like that shift of attention, like just like noticing that you're being attacked, like the RID model that's in the module. So the recognizing that you're being attacked, identifying what the attack is, defending and then disengaging. That it's almost like you're defending and disengaging almost comes together, which is that you notice it and then you just sort of move your attention away from it. Where are some other examples at the moment where your inner critic is particularly potent, or it's sort of had a sort of a grip on you in a sense?
Everything. It's just every sort of thing I'm sort of doing, really.
Do you let yourself feel your anger or your hatred? Like, do your emotions get a chance to be felt and discharged, or is there a sort of bubbling up and a building up that sort of comes and then reaches a point where it turns in on you, or it sort of gets exploded out?
I would say that I'm always feeling sort of angry and aggressive, and it's more I'm always just trying to keep a lid on that.
Right.
So
do you have a sense of the history? Like, do you remember? Was that true in childhood as well? There was a lot of anger and aggression that was there.
I don't think so. I don't remember there being any. I think.
Did you get into fights a lot as a kid?
No more than anyone else, really.
Right. And that wasn't just growing up in Scotland.
Yeah. I would say I was probably, in high school probably bullied a bit, but then everyone was, so there was people got it a lot worse than me. And I had various defense mechanisms that I would use to sort of get out of things.
Do you think you've become more angry as life has gone on, or do you think that anger was there and you've just sort of become more aware of it?
I think that anger was there, and I think there was a period, sort of after the strokes, certainly, where it probably made me less worried about getting injured.
So more reckless, in a sense.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more reckless and a little bit more, I don't know, self-harming's not the word, but more prone to self-destruction.
So do you think that since the first diagnosis, in a sense, do you think there was an element of anger that escalated in your life because of the physical disability and the sort of frustration at that?
I think so. I don't know if it escalated.
It would be a reasonable response.
Yeah, I don't know if it escalated, but I think it gave it more free rein. And
it gave it something more angry, like a specific thing with which to be angry about as well.
Well, I was more just angry. You know, I mean, obviously I was angry at the physical side of things, but it was, you know, I was just angry and looking for an excuse to be angry.
So would you define yourself, sort of, you know, as we talk about it now, would you define yourself as an angry person?
Yeah. I think I'm a closet angry person.
I was going to say, because my next question was, do you think your close friends and family would describe you as an angry person?
I don't know. I think some of them might, but it's never directed at them. It's never, you know, It's always directed at the world or some injustice or something, you know, but it's like, you know, I did go through a long period where I was shouting at the telly, you know, and it's like, you know, I always describe Twitter as shouting at cows, you know, it's like, it's that, you know, because it is that time where you just put out into the ether.
Shouting at cows.
You know, and, you know, I never tended to get any big, huge disagreements with, you know, loved ones or friends or anything like that, you know, it's, you know, I would, at the drop of a hat, turn over a table in a bar and, you know, and like, it would turn out like a John Wayne film, you know, it'd be like, or, you know, public transport or cyclists, you know, just, but, you know, never really people in my life who I could potentially hurt.
Yeah, people you care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, part of how I see it is I don't think there are so much people that are angry. Let me rephrase that. I don't think it's so much that there are angry people. I think there are people that have a lot of anger.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important distinction, because if someone's just an angry person, you can't really do anything about that. That's just sort of how you are.
Yeah.
But I think what's more accurate is there are people that have a lot of anger. And then the question becomes, well, why, and what's the impact of that anger? And if you're a person that has a lot of anger and you're not a particularly kind person, you just treat people like shit. And that's sort of how one deals with the fact they have a lot of anger in the system. If you're someone like you who is ultimately a kind, nice person, I'm not saying you don't have your moments, and I'm not saying that you haven't turned over a few tables in bars or said a few things on Twitter that in your better moments you might regret. But I don't think you're inherently someone which goes around and takes pleasure in causing misery. You're someone that wants to generally make people feel good, but of course things can snap at some points. So that anger has to go somewhere. Like, that anger is in your body, it's in your nervous system. And if it's not going to get externalized, then that anger, I think a lot of the time, is getting internalized. And it becomes the sort of ammunition to then be turned against yourself, which is ultimately the fuel of your inner critic. Let's take, the example of feeling frustrated at work. When you feel angry about that, what do you do with that anger?
Not a lot. I think when it comes to getting angry at work, I've never really seen the point, because there are some things you can change, there are some things you can't.
So do you rationalize it away? You sort of tell yourself there's no point in getting angry about it?
Sometimes, but usually, well, for instance, not in this job, because there is a point to get angry about it, it's just not going to change anything. But like, usually, and I would say even in this job, I'm seen as quite calm. I'm seen as somebody that doesn't get particularly rattled, or, or someone who, not necessarily is a peacemaker, but is supportive towards the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Because I will see other people getting really angry and think to myself, well, that's not going to help. That's not going to change the situation. I'll try and calm them down. I'll try and talk them down. And then we'll try and find some strategy. So
in some situations, you're almost the voice of reason.
Yeah.
Do you, in that situation, are you effectively calming yourself, or do you feel angry and you're ignoring it? Or it may actually be that you're kind of penetrating the situation with a level of clarity, which is actually allowing you to not become irritated by it.
I think it's a mixture of having the clarity, but also being really angry about it.
Right.
So like, I'm still really angry about it.
Right.
I just don't
express it.
Yeah, and I'll be calm, and I'll have the clarity to see, oh, this is what we need to do, and we need to find a way of doing this, and but as soon as I turn off my computer, I'm seething.
Right. So what happens to that anger? So you close your computer, or you get home from work, and you've sort of had this voice of clarity, reason, because you don't want to inflame and blow up the situation, but you're still feeling angry. What happens to that anger?
Nothing. It just festers.
It festers. Yeah. Yeah. It festers. Like it's like a load of energy in your system which is unprocessed, which you're either having to self-medicate with whiskey, or sometimes it explodes and leaks out. Sometimes you turn it against yourself, but you're walking around feeling angry, feeling pissed off, irritated. Like, I think that goes a long way to explaining why at times you also feel depressed, because I think you're probably oscillating between these two places of being really angry and pissed off and fed up, and then almost becoming exhausted by the anger and becoming apathetic and hopeless and pointless, and what's the point in anything, and then getting angry again. And it strikes me that I think you probably spend quite a lot of your emotional life, in a sense, in one of those two places.
Yeah, probably.
Does that feel accurate?
Yeah.
I think the feeling hopeless and apathetic and pointless is a reaction to the anger, because it's a reaction to what feels like the impotence of the anger, if that makes sense. Like, you feel angry and frustrated and pissed off, nothing changes. So what's the point? Is sort of the consequence of that. And then so there's a sort of high energy, almost numb, frustrated, irritated, angry, to a sort of low energy, hopeless, pointless, what's the point?
Yeah, quite possibly. I think that's got worse during lockdown.
Say more.
Every so often, if you were actually having to commute, there would be an excuse to sort of release some of that anger.
Someone to direct it. Yeah. In your mind, at least. Yeah.
Or, I mean, it's that sort of fight or flight thing, whereas, it was all, it's all hardwired into us, so we could, survive a saber-toothed tiger attack in the middle of the night. So it's either you run away, or you attack the tiger, or you stay still. And, just because we're now, using PCs and stuff, that doesn't go away.
Correct.
So really and truly, if I was in the office and a spad kicked off at me or something like that, I should do the same as I would do if it was a saber-toothed tiger, and just pick up a chair and brain him. And working from home, you can't do that. So there's less options to get rid of that.
There is. There's also just less what is called pattern interrupts. Like, you be in a pattern of being pissed off and fed up, and then you're walking to the tube, and then you sort of get distracted. Like, there's less things that brings one out of their sort of mindset, in a sense. I think one of the challenges with the isolation of lockdown is people drop deeper into their bad emotional habits, in a sense, because the things in life that break those are not there temporarily. What would you say if I told you that there are a whole range of different strategies that one can learn to process emotion, get rid of emotion, where sometimes, but certainly to have a healthier relationship, to be able to metabolize and digest?
I'll take your word for it. I've never met them.
Can you see, though, the potential impact that can have?
Yeah.
Because what becomes increasingly clear to me is that you're not an angry person, you're a person that's experiencing a lot of anger, which is at times being turned against you, at times is exploding out, that you're oscillating between being angry and self-medicating that to sort of feeling the impotence of the anger and feeling hopeless and pointless and despondent, which is almost a worse place, because at least in the anger there's a sense of energy or a sense of power that comes with it. In the other place, which is I think probably the dark night place, there's not even that, in a sense. That's a sort of way that your emotional life has become structured and has become wired. But that doesn't mean that it always has to be that way. And unless we actively learn specific ways to work with our emotions, why would we know how to work with our emotions? I mean, it's its own mastery. It's its own sort of science in a sense. And I think there's significant potential for your life to evolve and to change if you can have a different relationship with your anger and more wholesome strategies for processing and digesting it. Because I do think those dark nights are a consequence of the anger building and not being processed and then flipping to this place of becoming hopeless and despondent. But if the anger doesn't build in that way and is able to be metabolized and processed and digested, then you don't need to flip. You won't find yourself flipping to that place as a consequence of that.
I'll give it a go.
Well, I think the next step is a little bit like we started off doing with the inner critic, is working on building awareness around how you currently respond to what's happening emotionally. And there's a module in the program that I originally gave you access to. There's a module in there called the 6 emotional styles. It's module 6. And I think that would be a really good piece of homework between now and next time. There's also some practical exercises at the end of the module, which I'd like you to do. And sort of the real frame is spending some time reflecting on, and the module will give you the frame within which to do that, but to spend some time reflecting on your current way of relating to yourself emotionally. When emotions come up, what do you do with them? What do you not do with them? What are the emotions that are coming up? And then getting into next time, we can start to explore what are some other ways then to work with your emotions. What are some other strategies and tools to use?
Okay.
Any questions?
Not at the moment.
Does that sound okay? Okay, good.
Is it what you expected it to be like, or is it different? If so, why?
I don't know what I expected it to be like. I mean, obviously, I think you have your sort of stereotypical view of what therapy is, or what what counselling is from TV or whatever. But yeah, as I say, I think it's been interesting. It's brought up some interesting stuff, and stuff that probably, well, definitely needed to be brought up. It's been quite shocking just how much I have been sort of kicking the shit out of myself. It's like, yeah, once you sort of, you see that that's what's happening, you can't see anything else for it. So I think I'm still a little bit overloaded. I do have sort of faith in the process. I think, there's a lot of other things going on than just my anger, but I think it's a big part of it.
I hope you found this week's episode of In Therapy helpful. I think this idea with David is so important, that just because we have a lot of anger doesn't mean that ultimately we're an angry person. What we need is the tools and the strategies to more healthily and more effectively work with those emotions. Just a reminder, if you head over to my Instagram, you'll see summaries and key ideas from my philosophy from the episodes. It's a great way of tracking along and taking these ideas and going a bit deeper with them in your life. Next week, we're going to be catching up with Katie. You may remember in Katie's previous episode, we explored this idea of get into jail free cards, I'm going to be following up on that with Katie. Here's a taste of what's coming up next week.
I've fought battles that maybe weren't battles to be fought on behalf of my kids because I can't allow them.
You want them to know that you would fight for them.
I would do anything for them. I recognise again this week that some of those battles that I fought are on behalf of this little girl inside who's so frightened and desperate.
Feel that place in you where she's longing and she's wanting.
Oh, I can't do this.